The Veloran Empire had ruled 12 star systems for over 10,000 years. Their ships were the fastest. Their weapons were the strongest. Their people lived for centuries and looked down upon all other species in the galaxy. They were tall, elegant beings with silver skin and eyes that glowed like pale moons. They believed themselves to be the peak of evolution. So when the humans arrived in space, nobody paid much attention. Earth was a small planet in a distant corner of the galaxy. The Velorans sent observers as they always did with new species. The reports came back quickly. Humans lived short lives, barely 100 years. Their bodies were soft and weak. They had no natural weapons, no claws, no fangs, no armor. They could not see in the dark. They could not hear distant sounds. They got sick easily. They died from things as simple as falling down or eating the wrong food. The Veloran Council read these reports and laughed. "They are not a threat," the Emperor declared. "They are barely more than animals." But then something strange happened. The humans spread. They spread fast. Within 200 years, they had colonized dozens of planets. They built ships that were ugly but effective. They formed alliances with other species. They traded. They grew. And sometimes they fought. The first war between humans and another species lasted only 6 months. The humans won. The second war lasted 2 years. The humans won again. By the third war, other species had learned not to attack human colonies. The Veloran Council stopped laughing. "Perhaps," the Emperor said slowly, "we should make peace with them before they become a problem." This was how the treaty came to be. And this was how Princess Hana found herself standing in the great hall of the palace, waiting to meet her future husband. Hana was the eldest daughter of Emperor Yun. She was considered the most beautiful woman in the empire. Her silver skin was flawless. Her eyes glowed bright blue. Her hair fell like liquid metal down her back. She had been raised to be perfect in every way. She spoke 12 languages. She could dance, sing, and play music. She understood politics and warfare. She was everything a princess should be. And now she was being given to a human like a gift. "This is an insult," she had told her father when he first explained the arrangement. "This is politics," he had replied calmly. "The humans want respect. A marriage between our families shows them that we see them as equals. It will keep the peace. But a human, they are weak, primitive creatures. They do not even live long enough to learn anything meaningful." The Emperor had looked at his daughter with tired eyes. "The reports say they are weak, but weak species do not win wars, Hana. There is something about them we do not understand. Perhaps you will learn what it is." So Hana stood in the great hall, dressed in her finest robes, waiting for her primitive husband to arrive. Around her stood 100 nobles, all watching with curiosity. Some looked amused. Some looked disgusted. None of them expected much. The doors opened. Hana had prepared herself to see a monster. She expected something ugly and brutal, covered in hair perhaps, with small, angry eyes and thick, clumsy hands. She expected to feel fear or at least disgust. She felt nothing. The human who walked into the hall was small by Veloran standards. He stood only slightly taller than Hana herself, which meant he was much shorter than the Veloran males around him. His skin was a warm brown color, smooth and plain. His hair was black and cut short. His eyes were dark and quiet. He wore simple clothes, dark and neat but not impressive. He carried no weapons. He wore no jewelry. He looked like a servant, not a diplomat. The human walked forward slowly. He did not seem nervous, but he did not seem proud either. He simply walked. When he reached the bottom of the steps that led up to where Hana stood, he stopped. And then he bowed. It was not a Veloran bow. It was something else, something from Earth perhaps. He bent at the waist, lowered his head, and held the position for a long moment. When he rose, his expression was calm and gentle. "Princess Hana," he said, his voice was soft and warm. "My name is T. I am honored to meet you." His Veloran was perfect, not a single mistake. He must have studied for years. Hana looked down at him and felt a strange confusion. This was her enemy. This small, soft, quiet creature. He looked like he would break if someone pushed him too hard. He looked like a gentle animal, the kind that children would keep as pets. "You may rise," she said coldly, even though he had already risen. She wanted to remind him of his place. "I am told we are to be married." "Yes," T said simply. He did not add anything. He did not try to flatter her or impress her. He just stood there waiting. "Do you understand what this means?" Hana asked. "You will live here in my palace under my rules. You will learn our customs and follow them." "I understand," T said. "Good." Hana turned to her handmaiden Kira, who stood nearby. "Show him to his quarters, the ones in the East Wing." The East Wing was the oldest part of the palace, far from the main halls, far from anything important. It was where they put guests who did not matter. Kira's eyes widened slightly at the insult, but she said nothing. T simply bowed again. "Thank you, Princess." He followed Kira out of the hall without complaint. He did not look back. He did not protest. He just walked away quietly like a shadow. When he was gone, Lord Galen approached Hana. He was a tall, powerful noble with cold eyes and an ambitious heart. "Your Highness," he said smoothly, "I must say I expected more from the famous humans. He seems rather disappointing." Hana watched the door where T had disappeared. "He is harmless," she said. "Like a small pet, he will stay quiet and cause no trouble." Galen smiled. "Perhaps that is for the best. A weak husband is easier to control." Hana nodded, but something in her chest felt strange. She could not explain it. There was something about the way T had looked at her. His eyes had been calm, yes. Gentle, yes. But for just a moment, when she had spoken coldly to him, she thought she saw something else in those dark eyes. Something old. Something patient. Something waiting. She shook off the feeling. It was nothing. He was nothing. Just a human. Just a weak, soft, harmless human who would live out his short life in her shadow and then be forgotten. That night, Hana told her father that the marriage would not be a problem. "He is less than I expected," she said. "He will not cause any trouble." The emperor studied his daughter's face for a long moment. "I hope you are right," he said finally. "But remember what I told you. Weak species do not win wars." Hana did not listen. She had already made up her mind. In the East Wing, in a small plain room, T stood by the window and looked out at the alien stars. He did not unpack his bags. He did not explore his new home. He simply stood there, still and silent, watching the night. If anyone had seen him at that moment, they would have noticed that his gentle expression was gone. His face was blank and hard and cold. His eyes moved slowly across the palace grounds, noting every guard, every entrance, every shadow. Then, as quickly as it had come, the coldness disappeared. He smiled softly, turned away from the window, and began to water a small plant he had brought from Earth. He had a lot of work to do, but he was patient. He had always been patient. 3 months passed, and T became part of the palace like furniture. People stopped noticing him. He was always there, quiet and small, standing in corners during meetings, walking through gardens in the early morning, sitting alone in the library reading Veloran books. He never complained. He never asked for anything. He never raised his voice. The servants whispered about him. Some said he was simple-minded. Others said he was scared. A few thought he was just very, very sad. But everyone agreed on one thing. The princess had been right. He was harmless. Hana barely spoke to him for the first month. She was busy with her duties, and he was not important. But slowly, without meaning to, she started to notice him. It began with small things. One morning she found fresh flowers in her study. Not Veloran flowers, but strange, colorful ones she had never seen before. When she asked Kira about them, her handmaiden smiled. "The human grows them in his room," Kira said. "He asked if he could leave some for you. He said the colors might make you smile." Hana looked at the flowers. They were beautiful in a wild, untamed way, so different from the perfect silver plants of Velura. "They are acceptable," she said, but she did not throw them away. A week later, she was working late in her office when T appeared at her door. He carried a tray with a bowl of something hot and steaming. "You missed dinner," he said simply. "I made soup." Hana stared at him. "You cook?" "Yes, my mother taught me when I was young." He set the tray on her desk. The soup smelled strange but pleasant. Humans believe that food tastes better when someone makes it for you by hand. Machines cannot add love to a meal. He bowed slightly and left before she could respond. Hana looked at the soup for a long time. Then, feeling foolish, she tasted it. It was warm and rich and somehow comforting in a way she could not explain. She ate the whole bowl. After that, she started watching him more closely. T spent most of his time in the gardens. He had claimed a small corner near the east wing and filled it with earth plants. He worked in the soil with his bare hands, something no Veloran would ever do. He talked to the plants as he watered them softly, like they were old friends. "Why do you do that?" Hana asked one afternoon. She had found herself walking to his garden without really knowing why. T looked up and smiled. His smile was always warm, always gentle. "Do what, princess?" "Talk to them, they cannot hear you." "Perhaps not," he agreed, "but I think they feel it. Life responds to kindness, even plants." Hana did not believe him, but she sat down on a nearby bench and watched him work. His hands moved with surprising skill, quick and precise. There was something calming about watching him. "Tell me about Earth," she said suddenly. T's hands paused for just a moment. Then he continued working. "What would you like to know?" "Everything. I have read the reports, but reports do not tell the truth of a place. They only tell facts." T was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, deeper, older. "Earth is beautiful," he said, "and terrible. We have blue oceans that stretch forever, mountains so tall they touch the clouds, forests so thick you can walk for days and never see the sky." He paused. "But we also have storms that destroy cities, earthquakes that swallow towns, animals that hunt us for food." Hana frowned. "Your planet tries to kill you." "Every day." T smiled, but there was something sad in it. "Earth is what scientists call a death world. The gravity is heavy. The weather is extreme. The diseases are endless. Most species would not survive a single year there." "Then how did humans survive?" T looked at her then, and for a moment his gentle eyes seemed to hold secrets she could not understand. "We adapted. We changed. We became stubborn." He went back to his gardening. "Humans do not give up. It is our greatest strength and our greatest weakness." Hana thought about this for a long time. Over the following weeks, they talked often. T told her about human history, and it was nothing like she expected. Humans had fought wars against each other for thousands of years. They had created weapons that could destroy entire cities. They had nearly wiped themselves out more than once. "Your species fights itself," Hana was shocked. "Why?" "Many reasons: land, resources, ideas, sometimes just anger," T shrugged. "We are not a peaceful species, princess. We try to be, we want to be, but there is something dark inside us, something hungry. We spend our whole lives trying to control it." "And you," Hana asked quietly, "do you have this darkness?" T did not answer for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "Everyone does. The question is what we do with it." That night, Hana lay awake thinking about his words. She had always believed that humans were simple creatures, driven by basic needs like animals. But T was not simple. He was complex and strange and surprisingly deep. She also started noticing other things about him. Things that did not fit the image of a weak, harmless human. His reflexes, for example. Once, during dinner, Hana accidentally knocked a glass off the table. Before she could even react, T's hand shot out and caught it. His movement was so fast she almost missed it. When she stared at him, he just smiled and placed the glass back gently. "Clumsy of me," he said softly. But it had not been clumsy at all. Then there was the way he moved through rooms. He always positioned himself near doors. His eyes always swept over new spaces, quick and careful. He stood in ways that seemed relaxed but were actually balanced, ready. Kira noticed it too. "There is something strange about your husband, Princess," she said one evening while brushing Hana's hair. "He moves like a dancer or a soldier." "He is neither," Hana said. "He is just a gardener who tells stories." But even as she said it, she was not sure she believed it. The most confusing thing was how he made her feel. Hana had never cared about anyone's opinion before. She was a princess. She did not need approval. But lately, she found herself hoping that T would smile at her. She felt warm when he brought her food. She looked forward to their conversations in the garden. One night she went to check on Kira, who was sick with a mild fever. On her way back, she passed T's room. The door was slightly open and she could see him inside. He was exercising, but not like Velorans exercised. He was moving through strange patterns, flowing from position to position with smooth power. His movements were slow and controlled, but there was something deadly about them, something practiced. Hana watched for a long moment, her heart beating strangely fast. Then T stopped. Without looking toward the door, he spoke. "Would you like to come in, Princess?" Hana's face grew hot. She had been caught spying like a child. She turned and walked away quickly without responding. That night she could not sleep. She kept seeing him move in that dark room, graceful and dangerous. She kept hearing his words about the darkness inside humans. She kept wondering who he really was. But when she saw him the next morning, he was the same as always. Gentle smile, soft voice, warm eyes. He offered her tea and asked if she slept well. He was harmless. He had to be. Hana looked into his dark eyes and searched for the truth, but all she saw was kindness. She did not know that kindness could be a mask. She did not know that the most dangerous creatures were often the ones who seemed the most peaceful. She did not know that T had been watching her too. And she did not know that somewhere in the palace, Lord Galen was making plans, plans that would change everything. But she would learn. They all would. The Grand Festival of Light was the most important celebration in the Veloran Empire. It happened once every 10 years, when all 12 moons of the homeworld aligned in the night sky. Nobles came from every corner of the empire. The palace was filled with music, dancing, and laughter. Hana stood in the great ballroom, dressed in robes that shimmered like starlight. Beside her, T wore simple dark clothes that made him look even more plain than usual. Nobles glanced at him and looked away quickly, like he was not worth seeing. But T did not seem to mind. He stood quietly at Hana's side, watching everything with those calm, patient eyes. "You do not have to stay with me," Hana said softly. "You could walk around, meet people." T smiled. "I prefer staying here." Hana felt a strange warmth in her chest. Over the past months, she had grown used to his presence. She found comfort in his quiet strength. She had even started to wonder if maybe, just maybe, she was developing feelings for this strange, gentle human. She pushed the thought away. It was foolish. He was just a political arrangement, nothing more. Across the room, Lord Galen watched them with cold eyes. Galen had hated the human alliance from the beginning. He believed that Velorans were the superior species and should rule the galaxy alone. The marriage between Hana and T was an insult to everything he believed in. But more than that, he saw an opportunity. The emperor was old. The princess was young and inexperienced, and she was married to a weak human who could not possibly protect her. If something were to happen tonight, if the royal family were to fall, Galen could take the throne for himself. He had been planning this for months. He had gathered soldiers loyal to him. He had bribed guards. He had made deals with nobles who shared his views. Everything was ready. At midnight, when the celebration reached its peak, Galen would strike. T felt the change in the air before he saw anything wrong. He had learned long ago to trust his instincts, and right now, his instincts were screaming. Something was coming. He scanned the room casually, careful not to show his concern. He noticed guards who stood in wrong positions. He noticed nobles who kept checking the doors. He noticed small signals being passed between servants. His heart remained calm. His breathing stayed steady, but inside he was already preparing. "Princess," he said softly, leaning close to Hana's ear, "something is wrong." Hana looked at him with surprise. "What do you mean?" Before he could answer, the great doors of the ballroom burst open. Armed soldiers poured into the room. They wore black armor and carried energy weapons. They moved with military precision, surrounding the crowd and blocking all exits. Screams filled the air. Nobles ran in panic. Guards tried to fight back, but they were quickly overwhelmed. In seconds, the beautiful celebration became chaos. Lord Galen walked through the doors, a satisfied smile on his face. He was dressed for war now, not celebration. A sword hung at his side. "Everyone remain calm," he announced, his voice booming across the room. "No one needs to die tonight, as long as everyone cooperates." Hana's father, Emperor Yun, stepped forward. He was old but still proud. "Galen, what is the meaning of this?" "The meaning is simple, Your Majesty." Galen's smile grew wider. "Your time is over. The Veloran Empire needs strong leadership, not an old fool who makes deals with primitive species." He gestured toward T with disgust. "You have weakened us. You have shamed us. Tonight I will fix your mistakes." Soldiers grabbed the Emperor. He struggled, but they were too strong. Other soldiers moved toward the nobles, separating them into groups. Hana felt T's hand on her arm. "We need to leave," he whispered. "Now. I cannot leave my father. If we stay, we die. If we escape, we can fight back." His voice was still soft, but there was something new in it. An edge. "Please, Hana, trust me." She looked into his eyes. They were not gentle anymore. They were hard and focused and strangely intense. She nodded. T moved. His hand found hers, and he pulled her toward a side door that the soldiers had not yet reached. Kira followed close behind them. A soldier noticed them and raised his weapon. T's free hand shot out and pushed the weapon aside at the exact moment it fired. The energy blast hit the ceiling instead of them. Before the soldier could react, T struck him in the throat with 2 fingers. The soldier collapsed, gasping for air. Hana stared in shock. T had moved so fast she barely saw what happened. "Keep moving," T said calmly. They ran through the side door and into the palace corridors. Behind them, they could hear shouting. Soldiers were following. T led them through passages and hallways without hesitation. He seemed to know exactly where he was going. "How do you know the palace so well?" Hana gasped as they ran. "I have been walking these halls for months," T replied. "I memorized every corridor, every exit, every hidden passage." He glanced back at her. "Preparation is survival." They reached the royal gardens, a vast, beautiful space filled with trees and fountains. The moons above cast silver light across the paths. For a moment, it seemed peaceful. Then soldiers emerged from the shadows. 12 of them formed a circle around Hana, T, and Kira. They had clearly been waiting here, expecting the princess to run this way. Their weapons were raised and ready. One soldier, their leader, stepped forward. "Princess Hana, you should have stayed in the ballroom. Lord Galen wants you alive, but he did not say you had to be unharmed." Kira moved in front of Hana, trying to protect her. One of the soldiers shot her. The energy blast hit her side, and she fell to the marble ground with a cry of pain. Blood began to pool beneath her. "Kira," Hana dropped to her knees beside her handmaiden. Kira was alive but badly hurt. Her face was pale with pain. Hana looked up at the soldiers with hatred in her eyes. Then she looked at T. He stood very still. His face was calm, too calm, like the surface of water before a storm. Hana stood and positioned herself between T and the soldiers. She would not let them hurt him. He was gentle and kind, and he could not fight trained warriors. She had to protect him. "I will come with you," she said to the soldiers, "but you will let my husband and my handmaiden go." The soldiers laughed. "Princess," T said softly behind her, "please move aside." "No, I will not let them hurt you." "Hana," his voice was different now, deeper, harder, "I am asking you to trust me, one last time." Something in his tone made her turn and look at him. The man standing behind her was not the T she knew. His gentle expression was gone. His soft eyes had become cold and sharp, like the edge of a blade. His body was relaxed but coiled, like a predator about to strike. He looked at her, and for the first time she saw him completely. "Please close your eyes," he said gently, almost kindly. "You should not see this." Hana's heart was pounding. "T, what are you going to do?" He did not answer. He simply stepped around her and walked toward the 12 armed soldiers. "I will give you one chance," he said to them, his voice calm and cold. "Drop your weapons and walk away. If you do this, you will live." The soldiers laughed again. The leader pointed his weapon at T's chest. "Stupid human, you are going to die for nothing." T looked at him with empty eyes. "No," he said quietly, "I am not the one who is going to die." And then he moved. Hana did not close her eyes. She could not. She watched everything that happened, and it would stay with her forever. T moved like nothing she had ever seen. One moment he was standing still. The next moment he was among the soldiers like a ghost made of violence. The first soldier fired his weapon. T was no longer where the blast went. He had stepped to the side in the time it took to blink. His hand caught the soldier's arm, twisted it, and there was a terrible cracking sound. The soldier screamed and dropped. T took his weapon. 3 seconds. The second soldier swung his weapon toward T. T ducked under the swing and drove his elbow into the soldier's stomach. The soldier bent forward and T's knee came up into his face. Another crack, another body falling. 5 seconds. 2 soldiers attacked together. T blocked one strike with the weapon he had taken, spun, and used the same motion to shoot the other soldier in the chest. Then he threw the weapon like a spear. It hit the first soldier in the throat. 7 seconds. Hana watched with wide eyes. This was not fighting. This was not combat. This was something else entirely, something precise and brutal and horrifyingly efficient. T did not waste any movement. Every step had purpose. Every strike had meaning. He flowed from one target to the next like water flowing down a mountain. A soldier managed to shoot T in the shoulder. The energy blast burned through his clothes and into his flesh. T did not make a sound. He did not slow down. He did not even seem to notice. He just kept moving, kept fighting, kept destroying. 9 seconds. The soldier who had shot him tried to fire again. T was already there. His hand closed around the soldier's face and pushed. The soldier flew backward and hit a stone pillar with enough force to crack it. 11 seconds. The remaining soldiers finally understood. This was not a weak human. This was something else, something terrible. They tried to run. They did not make it far. 14 seconds. 12 soldiers lay on the ground. Some were unconscious. Some were groaning in pain. 2 were completely still and would never move again. T stood in the center of them, breathing steadily. Blood dripped from his wounded shoulder onto the white marble floor. His hands were red. His face was empty. Then slowly, he turned to look at Hana. She was frozen. She could not speak. She could not move. The man standing before her was a stranger, a monster, something from the dark stories parents told children to make them behave. T walked toward her. She flinched. He stopped. "Hana," he said softly. His voice was gentle again like it always was, but now she knew what lay beneath that gentleness. I am sorry. I did not want you to see this. What? Her voice shook. What are you? T looked down at his bloody hands. When he spoke, his voice was tired, sad. I am human. That was not human, that was. That was exactly human. He looked at her with those dark eyes, and she saw something in them she had not seen before. Pain. Old, deep pain that had been hidden for a long time. Earth is a death world, Hana. You read the reports. You know the facts, but you do not understand what that means. He knelt beside Kira, who was still conscious but weak from blood loss. His hands, the same hands that had just destroyed 12 soldiers, touched her wound with incredible gentleness. He began applying pressure, stopping the bleeding. Our planet tried to kill us for millions of years, he continued, his voice calm as he worked. The cold tried to kill us, the heat tried to kill us, animals tried to kill us, diseases tried to kill us, other humans tried to kill us. He looked up at Hana. We survived by becoming the most dangerous thing on our world. Not the fastest, not the strongest, just the most relentless, the most adaptable, the most willing to do whatever was necessary. Hana's legs felt weak. She sat down on the cold marble, unable to stand any longer. The human government trained me, T said, returning his attention to Kira's wound. Since I was a child, they saw potential in me, so they shaped me into a weapon. I did things I am not proud of. I hurt people. I killed people. I became something my mother would not recognize. His jaw tightened. For a moment he looked like he might cry, but he did not. When the treaty was signed, they gave me a choice. Continue serving or retire and take a diplomatic position. I chose retirement. I chose peace. I wanted to become something else, something gentler. He smiled, but it was a broken smile. I thought maybe if I pretended to be harmless long enough, I would actually become harmless. Hana stared at him. Her mind was spinning. Everything she thought she knew about him was wrong. Every assumption, every judgment, every dismissal. Why did you not tell me? She whispered. What would I have said? Hello, I am your husband. I have killed more people than I can count. He shook his head. I wanted you to see the person I was trying to become, not the monster I used to be. Kira groaned. T checked her wound and seemed satisfied that the bleeding had slowed. She will live, he said, but we need to move. There will be more soldiers. He stood and offered his hand to Hana. She looked at it, the hand that had tended her flowers, the hand that had cooked her soup, the hand that had just broken bones and ended lives. She took it. T helped her up gently. His touch was warm and careful, like she was made of glass. I need to save your father, he said. Can you stay hidden with Kira until it is safe? No, Hana's voice was stronger now. I am coming with you. It will be dangerous. I am a princess of the Veloran Empire. I do not hide while others fight for me. She looked into his eyes. And I want to understand. I want to see who you really are. T studied her face for a long moment. Then he nodded. Stay behind me. If I tell you to run, you run. No arguments. Agreed. They moved through the palace together. T led the way, checking corners and listening for footsteps. Every few minutes they encountered soldiers. Every few minutes, Hana watched her husband become something else. He never used more force than necessary. If a soldier could be knocked unconscious, he knocked them unconscious. If a soldier could be avoided, he avoided them. But when violence was required, he did not hesitate. At one point they passed a window, and Hana caught a glimpse of T's reflection. His face was calm, focused, emotionless, but his eyes were burning with something fierce. Why are you doing this? She asked quietly as they moved through a dark corridor. You could have escaped. You could have left the planet and returned to Earth. Why risk your life for us? T did not slow down. Because you are my wife. A political arrangement. You owe me nothing. He stopped then and turned to face her. In the dim light, his eyes seemed to glow. When I took your hand in the ceremony, he said softly, I made a promise. Humans take promises seriously, Hana. We may be violent, we may be dangerous, But when we give our word, we keep it." He paused. "And besides, somewhere along the way, I stopped pretending." "Pretending what?" "That I did not love you." Hannah's breath caught in her throat. T turned away before she could respond and continued moving. "We can discuss this later, after your father is safe, after Galen is stopped." They reached the throne room doors. Inside, Hannah could hear Lord Galen's voice boasting about his victory. She could hear her father, still defiant despite being captured. T put his hand on the door. Then he looked back at Hannah one last time. "What I am about to do is ugly," he said. "But it is necessary. Please remember that I did it for you. All of it, always for you." Before she could respond, he pushed open the doors and walked inside. Lord Galen stood on the raised platform where the throne sat. Emperor Yun was on his knees before him, hands bound, guards on either side. 30 more soldiers filled the room. Galen held a ceremonial blade, ancient and sharp, ready to end the old emperor's life. He was in the middle of a speech about Velaran superiority when the doors opened. Everyone turned to look. Through the great doors walked a single human, small, wounded, covered in blood that was not entirely his own. He walked slowly, calmly, like he was taking a stroll through the gardens. Galen stared at him with confusion, then laughed. "The princess sends her pet to save the emperor. This is your great rescue." He shook his head. "Kill him." 5 soldiers raised their weapons and fired. T was not there. He had moved the moment they began to aim. The energy blasts hit empty air. T was already among them. The first soldier fell before he understood what happened. The second managed to turn before T's elbow found his temple. The third, fourth, and fifth collapsed in quick succession, taken down with precise strikes to vulnerable points. The room went silent. T stood in the middle of 5 fallen soldiers, breathing steadily. He looked up at Galen and the remaining guards. "Let the emperor go," he said. His voice was quiet but carried through the entire room. "And I will let you live." Galen's face twisted with rage and disbelief. "You are one human. I have 25 soldiers." "You had 30, now you have 25. T tilted his head slightly. "Would you like to see what happens when you have 0? For a long moment, nobody moved. The soldiers looked at each other nervously. They had trained for years. They were elite warriors, but this small, wounded human had just destroyed 5 of their brothers in seconds. Galen snarled and grabbed Emperor Yun, pressing the blade to his throat. "Come any closer and I will kill him myself." T stopped walking. His eyes focused on Galen with cold intensity. "You will not," he said simply. "You think I am bluffing. I think you are scared." T's voice was calm, analytical. "Your hands are shaking. Your breathing is fast. You expected to win easily, but now you realize you have made a terrible mistake." Galen's grip tightened on the blade. A thin line of blood appeared on the Emperor's neck. "T," Emperor Yun said, his voice steady despite the blade at his throat. "Do not sacrifice yourself for me. One life is not worth an empire." T looked at the Emperor, then slowly he smiled. It was not a gentle smile, it was something harder, sharper. "With respect, Your Majesty, you do not understand humans at all." And he moved. What happened next was almost too fast to follow. T ran straight at the platform, toward Galen and the soldiers. Weapons fired, but he weaved between the blasts like he knew where each one would go before it was shot. He grabbed a soldier's arm, used the momentum to swing himself up, and landed on the platform. Galen tried to slash the Emperor's throat. T caught his wrist. Their eyes met for a single frozen moment. Galen saw something in the human's eyes that made him go pale with terror. Something ancient, something hungry, something that had been fighting for survival for millions of years and had learned to win. T squeezed. Bones cracked. The blade fell from Galen's nerveless fingers. T caught it before it hit the ground and held it to Galen's own throat. "It is over," T said quietly. The remaining soldiers hesitated. Their leader was defeated. Their plan was ruined. One by one, they lowered their weapons. T did not take his eyes off Galen. "You made two mistakes tonight. First, you threatened my wife's family. Second, you underestimated humans." He leaned close, his voice dropping to a whisper that only Galen could hear. "We have spent our entire existence fighting our planet, fighting each other, fighting death itself. Did you really think you could defeat us with a few soldiers and a pretty speech?" He pushed Galen down to his knees and stepped back. Palace guards, the ones who had been hiding during the fighting, finally emerged to take control. They secured the rebel soldiers and put chains on Galen's wrists. The coup was over. Hana ran to her father and cut his bonds. Emperor Yun embraced his daughter, his eyes wet with tears he would never admit to. "You are safe," he whispered. "Thank the stars you are safe." "Thanks to T," Hana replied. The emperor looked at the human who stood quietly nearby, still bleeding from his wounds, still calm despite everything. Slowly, the ruler of 12 star systems walked toward his daughter's husband. Then Emperor Yun did something that had never happened in Veloran history. He bowed. "You have saved my life," he said. "You have saved my daughter, you have saved my empire." His voice trembled with emotion. "I owe you everything." T reached out and gently stopped the emperor from bowing further. "Please, your majesty, do not." "Why not? You deserve this honor and more." T shook his head. His face was tired, but his eyes were warm again, gentle again. "I did not do this for honor. I did not do it for politics or treaties or power." He looked at Hana. "I did it for her, only for her." The room was silent. Hana stepped forward until she stood in front of T. She looked at his wounds, his blood-stained clothes, his exhausted face. She thought about the gentle man who grew flowers and made soup. She thought about the monster who had destroyed an army. They were the same person. "You said you love me," she said quietly. T nodded. "I do." "Why? I was cruel to you. I dismissed you. I called you harmless like an insult." "You were honest," he smiled softly. "And you changed. You gave me a chance. You listened to my stories. You sat in my garden and asked about my world." He reached out and touched her face gently like she was made of starlight. "You saw me, not the weapon, not the monster, just me." Hana felt tears in her eyes. She had never cried before. Princesses did not cry, but she cried now. "I was wrong about you," she whispered. "I was wrong about everything." "You were careful. There is nothing wrong with being careful." His thumb brushed away her tears. "And now you know the truth. You can make your own choice." "What choice?" "Whether you want to stay with me. I am not harmless, Hana. I never was. I am a weapon that chose to become a gardener, but the weapon is still there. It will always be there." His eyes searched hers. "Can you love something like that?" Hana looked at him for a long moment. She thought about all the conversations they had shared, all the quiet mornings and peaceful evenings, all the times he had stood beside her, asking nothing, giving everything. She thought about how he had fought through an army to save her father. She thought about how he had asked her to close her eyes so she would not see the violence. She thought about the gentleness that was still in him, despite everything. "You asked me to trust you," she said finally. "In the ballroom, you asked me to trust you one last time." "Yes, I did, and you saved us." She took his hand in hers. "I will trust you again. I will trust you forever, because I understand now. Your gentleness is not weakness. It is a choice. Every moment of kindness is a victory over the darkness inside you, and that is braver than any battle." T stared at her like she had given him the universe. "I love you too," she said. "I think I have loved you for a long time. I was just too blind to see it." Later that night, after the doctors had treated T's wounds and Kira was resting comfortably in the medical bay, Hana and T sat together on a balcony. The 12 moons of Velora shone above them. "What happens now?" Hana asked, leaning against his uninjured shoulder. "Now we rest," T said. "Tomorrow we rebuild. The Empire will be stronger, your father will be wiser, and we will be together." Hana smiled. "That sounds nice." "It does." He wrapped his arm around her carefully. "I spent my whole life fighting, Hana, fighting enemies, fighting myself, fighting what I was." He paused. "But with you I do not have to fight anymore. With you I can finally be at peace." Hana looked up at him. The moonlight made his face look soft and young. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "I used to believe that humans were weak. I thought you were primitive animals barely worth noticing. And now," she laughed softly, "now I know you are the most terrifying species in the galaxy. You just choose not to show it." T smiled. "Only when we must. And when you love someone." He kissed the top of her head gently. "When we love someone," he murmured, "we become harmless, to them and only to them, but to everything that threatens them." His arm tightened around her protectively. "We become something else entirely." Hana closed her eyes and listened to his heartbeat, strong and steady and completely human. She understood now. She understood what made humans survive, what made them fight, what made them terrifying and gentle at the same time. Love. They loved fiercely, fought fiercely, and protected fiercely. They were not strong because they were powerful. They were strong because they would never, ever stop trying. Hana, crown princess of the Veloran Empire, fell asleep in the arms of a monster. She had never felt safer. And somewhere in the distance, the 12 moons continued their dance across the sky, marking the beginning of a new era for the Empire. An era where humans were no longer dismissed. An era where gentleness was strength. An era where love was the most dangerous weapon of all.